All right, welcome everyone. Going to give folks a few minutes to join, and I'll give a quick little intro about myself and Acelab. We are helping out hosting today's event, and then we will move right into today's CE approved course. So today's course.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say Abe had an AIA presentation today, so I don't know if he'll join us.
Okay, good to know. Well, I'll keep my eye out, and we can promote Abe to a panelist if he arrives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so today's course is Building Enclosure, the Dynamic Interfaces of Fluid Applied Barriers, CI, and Finish Systems. Got Brian Conroy today, who's going to be presenting for us. And I will go ahead and give us a quick little intro about Acelab and show you how to find Master Wall on Acelab's platform. So as I mentioned, Acelab is helping out with hosting today's event. My name is Bo. I'm the Director of Growth and Architectural Relations for Acelab. I'm also a former architectural designer myself. So here's a kind of snapshot of some of the other folks on Acelab's team. Acelab was founded and started by architects for architects. So we are really, building the tools that we wish we had ourselves in practice. And that was really how Acelab started. So here's kind of a quick illustrative example of what some of those problems and issues are that Acelab's platform is tackling. So within the kind of building product research journey, just being able to find the information that you need, sort and organize it in places that make sense, and relate it to your projects, as well as just get in touch with the right folks and experts when you need to get in touch with them. So with that, I'll just jump over real quick to Acelab's platform. So once you sign in, you get this great custom view of your dashboard with, all of the work you've been doing on Acelab, whether that's direct conversations with reps, projects that you've uploaded, products you've saved, and even your search history as well. So we've got all of our searchable categories up here, which you can use anytime if you'd like to go through kind of a short quiz process to be able to narrow down your products. But if you know exactly who you're looking for, we've got this handy search bar in the top. You can always type in the name of any manufacturer and head over to their page on Acelab. So here's Master Wall's page. You can connect with them directly through Acelab, scroll down and see an overview of their kind of brand's main value props, as well as all of their products. You can save these products directly to your projects, as well as start a project right from this page. I'll go ahead and save a few of them just to show you where those live and the exciting value of doing that. And one thing I like to note is that our pages for manufacturers are all formatted the same across different product types and across different manufacturers. So it can be really refreshing to be able to go back and forth from different manufacturers without having to jump back and forth into different formats of information. So those products that I've saved, I can find them in two different places, either my general product library. So here I've got a bunch of products that I've saved all organized by category. Open up this cladding list. So one of the great things about saving a product is that it not only stores it for you to be able to use in the future, but it also adds it to this handy comparison tool where you're able to scroll down and see an overview of product information. So main product highlights, a product description, as well as design options, finish options, styles, performance data, all graphed out in a very visual format. And then at the end, even certifications and downloads. So it's really just one click to save a product and you've automatically got all the data in one place. And you can, again, organize it by project or just save it to your general library. All right, so that is my quick tour of Acelab and kind of how to find Master Walls, as well as how to save and evaluate their products. So with that, I want to thank everyone again for joining today. We really appreciate you being here. And a few housekeeping notes. So I will send out a form in a few moments for anyone to submit their AIA number for AIA folks. We will also send out certificates to attendees. And another quick note is that we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So please feel free to submit questions during today's webinar. I'll kind of keep my eye on the chat box and we will definitely have some time to answer those. If we do not get to your question, we'll have a record of it, so we will be able to follow up with you after the event as well. And my email is right here, so if it's helpful for you to have a longer demo of Acelab's platform, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to provide some more information about Acelab. All right, that is it for me for now. And with that, Brian, whenever you're ready, feel free to take it away with today's AIA approved course. No, it seems your audio is off. Let's just double check with the attendees. Can everyone hear my voice all right? If someone wouldn't mind giving me a little, yep, raised hand. Great,
I got you. Yep.
perfect. All right, gonna figure out Brian's audio in one moment. Oh, also another thing that I like to note while Brian's working on his audio is that at the end during our Q&A section, if anyone has a question that they'd like to ask out loud, we always love to get a little conversation going. You don't have to turn your video on, but feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you towards the end once we're getting to that question portion. Looks like, Brian, you might just be muted. No, still can't hear you.
Yep, now that should be better.
Awesome.
We get computer stuff done.
Gotcha.
Everybody, I apologize for this. We should be good to go. I'm just going to share this in 1 second and crank along. Bam. Look at that. Technology is great when it works and it's fun when it doesn't. So everybody, thank you very much for coming. I'll leave this up here for a second so you guys can read this. It's one of my favorite quotes. I use it before everything that I do and say because I like people to wonder what the heck I'm doing in life. And one of the things I love to do is to have a lot of fun. So hopefully we have a lot of fun here today, and hopefully you do as well in your job, because if you don't, probably should leave that job and do something you love. What we're going to do today is go through a few things, but first I'll show this. If you hear the audio, great. If you don't, that's okay. I'm sure the visual will be enough. So the reason that I show that, and everybody is, and typically when I can see your faces, though, because of technology, I can't, I'm able to see generationally who remembers the original Schoolhouse Rock. And the reason why we do that is because knowledge is power. The more that we know, the better we're capable to go ahead and give the information to our clients, whoever that might be. Specifically, continuous education. I really like to kind of highlight why we do continuous education. I love teaching and education, but these are the three things that I've come up with specifically for presentations such as this: to be current. There's a great HBO newsroom series show that came on years ago, and there was a scene in the movie where they said every second you're not current, 1,000 of people are changing the channel to the guy who is. And to me, this goes down to the point of, architecturally speaking, when the owner comes to you and says, oh, I just found this new product, can't we use this in my job? And you're already through your DDs or your CDs or whatever is going on. You're like, oh my gosh, another product that they want to put into their project. It's not going to work. So to be current, it would be better if you said, hey, I already know about that, and it doesn't fit the project that we have right now. The other one is to make connections. At the end of the day, connections is what matters. For us to know who you are, for you to know who we are, so that we can help everybody in the project delivery that's going on. And the other one is to clean up. At the end of the day, I think we all want to make sure that we have everything that is clear, concise, correct, and complete. The CSI 4 C's, so to speak. So specification in movies, again, just some of the things that I've noticed over time of doing this, and how much the movie itself, when we go to the big screen and see something, that is a fantastic building or structure or job well done. But without the specifications, without the script behind the movies, none of it would happen, right? Without your vision as an architect. And I'm sure today there's no chance of me burning down your buildings, but let's hope that you don't burn them down either. One of my favorite movies there. We will go through this exact piece: building enclosures, dynamic interfaces of fluid applied barriers, CI, and finished systems. Kind of your standard AIA. Here's some general format information, but here's the course description: air, water, barriers, continuous insulation, the cladding, and integrating all of this to stay dry and protected. This is what we want to focus on, right? Making sure that we keep the outside out and the inside in. Some of the core objectives that we're going to talk about. What are the components? Understanding and learning the performance of these components, options that you may have in order to get the look that you want, and then bring this all together. I'm going to go try through this pretty quick. Please ask any questions in the Q&A. There's a couple of my counterparts with Master Wall specifically that are on here, so please ask questions. We will all help and jump in there with Bo as best as we can to answer them. I love having fun. Like I said in the beginning, this is one of my things that I enjoy doing, is giving trivia. This is my favorite building. Yes, it's because I also was born in New York City area. But the Chrysler building is the building. I just always have loved the design of this structure. The question, the trivia question would be, who is the architect and the year that it was built? Now, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to necessarily have you answer all together at once. We're going to see those answers possibly in the chat screen that's there. However, you should be able to know that maybe it was, I'm looking at the chat, William Van Allen, and 1930s is when it was done. I'm seeing the screen blade out. Is it just you? No, it's not just you. So let me go through before I keep cranking through, just to make sure. Are we doing any better on that, Bo, when it comes to the screen?
I think from my understanding, I think the background of the slides is just gray, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, so that's all by design. Thanks, everyone.
I just want to make sure. Awesome.
Cool.
So continuous insulation finished systems, CIFS, so to speak. Here's kind of generally the idea of the claddings that we will go through. We will also then, I will highlight on rain screen specifically at one point, and you'll see why I'll actually do that. But what if you could get all of the looks you want with one cladding? That's kind of the goal here of what we're looking for. And so what I want to do is I really want to start just like we would any other project and any other structure, is to start from the inside and go out. From a fluid applied air barrier, a drainage channel, insulation, and then the laminar. How all of this works together, making sure that the systems are what they are and that they have met certain requirements. Now, for the EIFS systems or the CIFS systems specifically, we want to make sure the one test that's always out there, that NFP 285 testing, and what that really looks like in the structure. So we will discuss a little bit of that as well. So if we start with the substrate first, there are many options that are out there. The glass mat gypsum sheathing, I would say, is probably one of the most prominent ones that is there. The plywood would be next. The other one I like to highlight in a way to say, please try not to use this, is OSB. It is out there. It is a cheap option. I would say it's not the best option. It is one that takes and sucks in more of a liquid applied membrane than anything else. And so it is one of those things to be really leery of. Anytime I go to a job site, it is one of those things that I look for to highlight, to say, hey, why are we using that? Is it just a cost effectiveness? Because if that's all that it is, honestly, in my opinion, professionally, it's not worth the cost. However, it is an option that you would have for a substrate. Right after that, it's really pretty simple. We go on to the next, the air and the water barrier. Now, this is a slide that I kind of have where we know what we know, right? And what do we know? Water, fire, and UV radiation. We know that heat and moisture flow from warm to cold. Moisture flows from more to less. Air flows from higher pressure to lower pressure. And gravity is going to always act down, whether that is a spherical earth, if you want to believe, or a flat earth. It does not matter. And yes, chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. Usually if I'm in public and in here, you would hear those laughs. I'm going to hit 3 out of those 4 areas: the water, air, and thermal. Vapor control, I will say, if you have jobs that you really want a vapor control layer, please, please talk to your air and water barrier professional, whether it's myself or anybody else, because it is very specific on the performance requirements that that's going to have. With that said, I will always tell you, it is better. And I wish when I was growing up and building homes even, I wish a fluid applied air barrier was something my boss encouraged, because I never liked getting back up on the ladder, having to take that, whatever paper barrier it was, flap it in the wind and restaple that to the wall when I was already done. I would rather have a fluid applied air barrier. And these are the reasons why I would rather have a fluid applied air barrier. It is fully monolithic. It becomes structurally part of that building. So it is not a separate attachment that's there. It does cover all of the joints and seams, easy to put into the openings. The flashings, and we'll get to flashings very much so, because the other claddings that are out there that can be used behind this water barrier systems is typically anything that's out there. So again, a liquid applied is definitely a better way to go than anything. Some of the efficiency and effectiveness of the air barrier and the testings that need to be watched out for are things like the ASTM 2178, 2357. I will say most of the air barriers that are liquid applied that are out there, they definitely meet these requirements. There are a few that may not, but again, it's really about the breathability of the system. And that's where I go back to that vapor control layer to really be mindful of that vapor control layer if you are going to seal and lock everything in where it is not breathing at all. The test specifically also there, E2570, when it comes to tensile bond and freeze thaw, all of these tests are being done to ensure weather protection. I mean, that is what we're looking at, right? Again, keeping the outside out and the inside in. Again, some of the benefits of a single air and water barrier: no laps, no breaks. It's seamless. You can go from top and down. Now, this is a detail typically I will show a lot of times, mainly because you can eliminate any flashing details that are needed here. You can actually go ahead and seal that off if you have accounted for a top, all the way top of the wall down to the bottom drainage system of some kind. In this case, you see a CIFS or EIFS system that's there right on top of a brick system. But again, accounting for the liquid to be able to incidental moisture go all the way from the top down and out the bottom, not needing to come run over top of the brick and discolor or damage any of that brick sill. It's seamless and single drainage plane. Oh yeah, like I said, trivia. Again, just toss these in here for your knowledge, for your next architectural design party that you go to. 1990s TV show Home Improvement, the name of the tool company. Most people do remember Home Improvement, but they don't remember is Binford Tools. Real men don't need instructions. I did mention flashing. I could spend all day on flashing. Flashing is probably one of the biggest things that we make all these calls about. It's all about control. The flashing is what we are doing to keep that outside out and the inside in. Only what we want to be moving in that wall system is what we want to control. For that reason, flashing must be redirected, right? It is the most important yet most ambiguous and misunderstood portion, I think, of the wall assembly. I cannot tell you how many times when I go to job sites where this has not been addressed, things are not flashed properly, and the person they're going to come after is going to be the cladding itself. They're not going to necessarily go to straight to the, whether it's the builder that put on a paper system or they put on a liquid system, or they missed and they forgot a penetration. But this flashing comes in many different ways and can be done in different ways. Specifically, here are a few ways to do that. A single component flashing, an STPE technology that's out there, typically is no mesh that's needed. So a lot of times in the next one that's down, the elastomeric acrylic roll-on or spray, you're going to have a fiber mesh material that's integrated into that liquid applied for penetrations and seams. That would not be needed in the STPE type of material. That spray-on or roll-on material also can come in a trowel grade. Again, there, architecturally speaking, a lot of times I will find architects that really want to have that trowel grade specified and detailed out in openings and over joints and seams, and then they're okay with the roll-on over top of the rest of the surface. Again, a very good way to do that. You also have a cement-based modifiers. We have at least one product that is an actual waterproofing base coat cement material type of product that gets troweled on. So they are out there for your use over typically things like stuccos and things like that. The biggest thing is on the peel and sticks that are out there to making sure compatibility. I again will say that these are things that I find have been helpful in the discussions like this, because the compatibility of a peel and stick to a flue applied really needs to be discussed early on in the sequencing of that job. So as long as that gets done, typically we are in good shape. What this looks like is this. So down here, this orange material, the darker orange material you're going to see is going to be kind of like that fabric membrane material that's fully encapsulated into the actual roll-on or trowel-on liquid material, which is the lighter orange. On the other side, the blue, that blue is into the window jamb opening. That is the STPE type of material that would not have a fabric membrane attached to it, but again, works just the same. That one going typically to be water curable. So again, in high humidity areas, you can spritz it with some water to let it dry quicker. Really does get utilized well. It is definitely one of those pieces where once starting to be used by applicators, they really do enjoy using that product. The next one I would always recommend is a sill pan type of material. Now this sill pan flashing that is called Sill Dry. It's nothing that I rep or anything. It's just a product I really think is great out there. Sill Dry, this is incorporated into, in this case, a liquid applied. You'll see how it laps over top of this sill pan. It's a one-piece sill pan flashing. And I would always recommend a sill pan of some type within your systems. Again, just one of the details to show how that looks like on a head flashing, and a few other details to show what that liquid applied would look like when it comes to over top of a window head, making sure that everything is lapped correct. Again, the darker orange is a fabric membrane material that would lap over top of everything. So everything is integrated in one system. Some of the details that I usually come across are these. Again, here that blue is your integrated STPE type of material as opposed to the liquid applied. Anywhere you see that blue, that's what that's going to be. And I usually show this mainly because something like this is a 6-inch diameter wall penetration pipe. If somebody forgets that hole and then they have to punch through the wall, remembering and showing what that really looks like around that 4-inch or 6-inch piping, what that could look like, as well as a sealant possibly on the interior side. And down here, you can see a sealant and backer rod and caulk on the exterior side. These are some of the things a lot of times people think, oh, I could just pump a hole through that wall, no matter what the cladding is, and not really have to worry about anything because we have already flashed the wall system. Yet you really got to make sure you flash these pipe penetrations, because with that air that's being sucked in, it will suck in any moisture that's on and around that pipe penetration. So what about energy? We talk about the energy and an eave system and making sure everything is done well. From energy code standpoint, these are generally what you're going to be looking at from a map standpoint. So it does require continuous insulation. Now, something that should be noted specifically is that continuous insulation has always been integrated as a component to an eaves system. It is not an upgrade or an add-on. It has always been there. And so from a standpoint with insulation, the eave system is really the true original continuous insulation system that's out there. With the continuous insulation, these are a few of the types of insulation that are out there. EPS, again, the original, the expanded polystyrene that's out there. Type 1, value play, for sure. It's going to be the most cost effective. It's easy to level, rasp, groove. So again, you have aesthetic looks. If you need in the wall system, it's going to be a much easier product to use. You can use an XPS, or let's just say a blue board or pink board, foam board. That's the type X as an XPS board. The biggest thing I would just mention is it does need to be shaved. It is expensive. So again, cost there, it's going to be a lot more in not only product cost, but I will tell you on the installation side as well. The installation of an XPS versus an EPS is a big difference. The question I know I'm going to get all the time, R value. What about the R value? The reality is, the way I look at it, EPS R value is a range, typically 3.8 to 4.2 is what most manufacturers of the actual EPS are going to tell you. I usually go ahead and just use 4.0 as a standard across the board. So an XPS at 5 versus 4, I don't see the value personally in that difference. Now, sometimes I have gotten to a point where that R value makes a big difference because they don't have an extra ½ inch of space that they can add, like a 2.5-inch EPS versus a 2-inch XPS. But that's very, very rare. So again, from an R value standpoint, I would say 4 for EPS, 5 for XPS, and kind of go from that way. So attaching of the EPS, or any insulation for that matter, there's a few ways to attach it. Mechanically attaching is something that is out there, does get utilized. One of the interesting things for me had always been realizing at some point there that the mechanical attaching actually is not as strong at adhesive attaching. And I'll show you the next slide here in a second where we adhesively attach it with the mud on the back of the board. But these would be just some of the ways you could screw on with fasteners, a fastening attachment to the wall system if you needed to. The adhesive attachment, adhesive proprietary typically systems, you're going to notch trowel it down so that you have that, sticking on, and the drainage for water. The biggest thing is there's no penetrations, right? So that's the greatest idea as far as there's no penetration. It offers a greater wind load capacity to what's going on. And so your system really becomes a well-drained, insulated, zero penetration system. This is kind of what that would look like in the full system of a picture. Adhesive and drainage all into one. Incidental moisture that comes in there, meeting that ASTM standard of 2273, as well as the ICC standards of 90% efficiency of drainage of incidental moisture. Again, this is not infiltration of moisture. It's the incidental moisture that might build up in the wall system itself. George Costanza, we all love Seinfeld. I love watching the reruns. It's a never-ending saga of joy to watch. But his alter ego and fictional character, if you do remember, he always wanted to be an architect and do the Guggenheim, right? He wanted to be an architect, Art Vandelay, for those who are out there. So bringing all this together into one system, just like George would, he would bring it all together, and this is what it looks like. A drainage system, penetrations with liquid applied into the wall jamb. I'll mention quickly here the amount of times I see window jambs that are not treated appropriately or not treated completely before the windows are being installed, whether it's a door front window or not. The substrates there, the liquid applied, the continuous insulation, base, mesh, and finish, and your termination. Now we're going to get into base, mesh, and finish as far as the look and the style and the colors and all the fun stuff that people see here. But this is what that system would look like. Finally, the finish. So like I did say before, rain screen systems or assemblies. One of the things I like to highlight is I love the terminology of rain screen. I really do. I think it really tells us a lot. What it doesn't do is when somebody highlights to you as an architect, I try to be as educated, informed as I possibly can to tell you, rain screen systems are not all what they're cracked up to be, mainly because when people are saying they have a system, they don't have a system. There are some claddings that are out there that look like this, that you will see. They are telling you they are rain screen systems, but yet they do not have a liquid applied or a paper applied attached water barrier. They don't have an air barrier. They don't have a foam that they promote or have within their system. They let you pick all of that, as well as they let you pick how it's going to get attached specifically with the fasteners. And they have a cladding. That cladding goes on top of whatever system you now have to go search for. And when you find that system, you can put their cladding over top of it. My contention is the EIFS are a full system. And now when we get into the finishes, you will see that everything we talked about, from the weather barrier all the way out to the lamina, which includes your base coat, your reinforcing mesh, and your finish, is a full system, including the look and design that you have been looking for your entire life. Lamina tested, approved by all of these ideal ASTMs that are out there. We can go through them in detail, but I will not bore you. We have met them and they are fantastic. Base coats. If we start with base coats, I love to show what that looks like. A bag or a bucket does not matter. They are all really used in the country, and typically you will find one section of the country that uses one versus the other, just for simply what they kind of got used to. In the Northeast, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, down into Pennsylvania, is typically bags, but once you get into PA and sometimes out to Ohio, it's buckets. It really just depends, depending on where you are. Like I said before, there is waterproof options available. That waterproof options are very, very rare and limited. We have one specific waterproof product. Whenever I hear somebody talk about a waterproof material, I tell them to be very, very careful to know exactly what they're getting, because not all waterproof products are waterproof, though they want to say that. Your mesh, like I said, it's base, mesh, and finish. Your mesh, your standard in an EIFS system is going to be a 4.5 ounce mesh. That's kind of standard. If you do need something more, you can get that. I would typically say that that higher level is typically a 21 ounce, 15 ounce. There are times that I've seen 6 and 12, but again, if they're going to go for the gusto and they want strength in their system from that bullet tested strength, they'll go straight to that ultra heavy. Now, the way that looks is a little different, and I'll show you that in a minute. But again, the standard is 4.5. 8 feet from grade to 8 feet is typically where I will see that high impact balcony areas and other heavy trafficked areas is where we're going to see that. Now, this is one of those things, again, on a detail side, because I noticed when I started giving this presentation out for a long time, people were designing and saying, yep, we want high impact mesh. But what they didn't do and they didn't realize was that that high impact mesh is going behind whatever else is there. And then the 4.5 is going in front of that high impact mesh to create the full system. And so this is what it looks like from a system standpoint. Again, that orange in the background you've got is the liquid applied barrier. You've got base coat. You've got the wall board as far as insulation, your base and mesh of high impact, and then base and mesh as far as the 4.5 ounce mesh. And I see the detail piece of what you guys are saying there briefly on the sides. There's not much. I tried briefly even trying to increase my brightness on here, and it's as bright as it can get. And I apologize for that. And I think, Bo, can I confirm with you if I'm able to make this presentation available to everybody where they could be able to get it somehow, and then they would be able to go back through it, even if the details were a little bit hazy?
There we go. Yeah, definitely. Feel free to we can change the background of the slides and we can email them out to folks after the webinar.
Absolutely, yeah. So sorry about that, everybody. Thanks for keeping me in the loop of that, though. Oh, that's right. Who is this? This is a great one. Here's the Guggenheim itself and the architect name of Frank Gehry. Again, going to finishes. This is the ultimate, right? This is where we all come down to the virtually any color is available when it comes to an EIFS systems, the stucco systems that there. Whatever it is that you're looking for, what I would always tell everybody is if you have an idea, you want it, you think EIFS can do it, ask, because there are times that we haven't been asked something yet, but we know we can do it. It's just a matter of asking. This is one of my favorite slides, mainly because traditional textures and finishes, anything after this slide, I can guarantee you will cost you more. Now, the reason why I say I like this slide is because once you're informed, and I've told you this as an architect design professional, that means anytime you specify something and you have my name or the company I work for's name involved, and you were given this presentation, you know, in your spec, if you give something out as a specialty finish, it's costing more. You already knew that, no problem. So the applicator must need to read your spec. A lot of applicators, I think, forget that portion of the actual job that they have to do. But reading the spec is really important, especially when it comes to finishes. The finishes are such a critical portion of this. So here you would have kind of versatile, smooth finish. You got medium and fine sand finishes, and then like a swirl texture here. But anything after this is going to be other options that you have. So the other options are things like this, a limestone or marble look. This is a very smooth finish. Kind of like a Venetian plaster. This is kind of what it could look like. You can see some of it gets stained if you want to have a stain. These are big wall panels. They're very, very smooth, almost like sheetrock smooth on some of this stuff. Now, the biggest thing I would tell you here is the fact that we need to make sure that these systems are done in small squares. This architect specifically had done one, and it was large square options. I would never recommend doing something. I try to say 5x5s, 8x8s are okay. But once you get larger than that, the applicator has a very difficult time keeping it smooth without kind of getting it all messy and nasty. You know, it can get modeled look to it. Sometimes you want that modeled look to it. It's just really, really tough to kind of make sure that these things are really working the way they need to work. So smaller boxes is better. Again, some of this what looks like interior as well. You can use this for interior, not a problem. Now, something just as smooth as kind of a limestone and marble is one that we would have called travertine. This one looks a little bit more like a stone. Again, over here on this project, it was a Barnes and Noble. This is an EIFS section, all that panel section. The top gray areas were not, but it was a monolithic water barrier from top to bottom. And that just gets troweled on. There's a little bit of a closer up look. Floated out kind of in a circular motion to make sure that these kind of had that stone or travertine or limestone look to it, but very, very smooth. We also have a stone or bold stone look. Now here you'll see in this diagram here, different colors of gray. Now this is the one product that does not get tinted. These stone or granite type of materials, this is all the color of the stone specifically. So the color of these stones is what makes the color. So people always ask me, are they customizable? Yes, they are, but be very careful because the time frame to get the custom colors, that will take you some time. It is all percentage based. So again, if we have a light gray and you want more white in it versus the gray color or the dark gray or the dark black color, we can percentage that out in a way that you want. We have browns and grays and yellows and blues and things like that. Here's a granite style kind of color that you could have. This one has mica flakes in it, and that's what gives it that kind of granite style look as far as like a granite countertop. Again, here's some of your reds and grays and browns and beiges and whites that kind of show you the different colors that you can get when it comes to the stone look. And we also have a metallic look. Now, the metallic looks are really interesting. Again, I highlight this piece of saying high level of training required, mainly because it is. The high level of training is if you really want a very, very smooth finish, like a metal panel specifically, it's going to take a lot of time and energy to make sure it is sanded down properly. The technical base coats that are on top of that regular base coat to make sure it is very smooth, ready for a spray application. I would not recommend rolling it, though people do roll on the metallic materials. The other thing, though, is that on top section, we have a textured metallic. So the textured metallic would be like fine sand texture that you can put into and right on with the metallic material. This way you're getting a metallic look, but it's not needing to be as crucial on the base coats being so smooth. And again, if you do need samples of these things and want to see them, just let us know. My information will be at the end here. We can get you samples for sure. Another look that you can get, people don't really think of, is a brick look with the CI. You can see these are, again, a brick stencil look. It's a specialty texture called Taratex, in this case with a mortar joint as well. And again, this is why I mention a lot of times when it comes to the specification, because making sure your specification is written specifically to a certain project for a certain product is going to make it different when somebody looks and says, oh, it's a stencil brick, right? Well, every stencil brick is not always the same one to the next. So being very careful to know that, hey, this is what we're putting in there for this specific reason, because this is the look that you're going to get. It looks like real brick. You can stain it. This is where you can kind of get different colors into those brick to see if they were tumbled with other colors, and then the mortar joints get done. That same material can be used in other ways. And this is one of those ways where I wanted to tell you before, where ask your EIFS professional, whether myself or somebody else that's out there, hey, I've got this building and I really want it to look like this. Do you have something that we could utilize to have it look like this? I had a guy that had come back from Israel. This is the picture he had from his trip in Israel, that he wanted something like this. And we used that same material that we used for the brick, we used to create this look. And again, we stained some of it, we cut these joint pieces into it, and it came out really, really well on his building to say, hey, we wanted like a block look of like an 18 by 12 inch blocks that were really almost like a mud look to it. I was looking at the repair. Wood grain, I'll get to the repairs. Wood grain look is another piece that we have right now on a lot of projects. This next slide you're going to see here is going to see some brick, custom brick things that I was looking at and working on in my shop specifically here, but you can see the wood grain. And again, all of this is EIFS being done on top of their base coat. And so it's the finished look that you're getting. This is kind of what the system would look like from a wood grain. Now, I put this one in not too long ago into the presentation, mainly to highlight and to show like what those V-grooves look like. I've asked many, many times, hey, you know, from applicator standpoint, how small of a V-groove can you go? Some people will say 1/4 inch. Some people will say they can't go smaller than 3/4 of an inch. Honestly, if you can put it in your spec and you really want them to be tight V-grooves, I would just put extremely tight 1/4 inch preferred, no more than blah, whatever it is, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. That at least gives direction to the applicator and the installer what you're looking for, really tight joints, or hey, I really want an open joint in something. You'll see some of these, I think, in the next few slides of what that can look like on the job. I believe this was one of our first jobs that we had done in wood grain, if not the first one. This was one that I had done up in New Jersey. Again, this is all EIFS, both the CIFS brick as well as the wood grain right next to it, and then just a texture next to that. Same thing here on this blue, as far as wood grain and the blue texture that was above. Just another close-up. Now, what I tell people and everything when it comes to the grain specifically and the wood grain specifically, what's really hard sometimes is to like know, hey, you have a look that you're looking for specifically as a design professional. The artistic piece of this is huge because the applicator is going to be the one that really does a lot of this. So in this case, as an example, this next slide, the applicator really ran with getting that wood grain look in a 12-inch panel piece or whatever the size is that's there. So again, it really matters on showing and training the applicators before they actually go and do it, doing a mock-up of some kind, getting them to do that mock-up, and then there's the samples that we know that they're, you know, you and the owners are expecting on the wall. I've got soffit sections that people will do it in the soffits. Again, not the easiest, but it can get done. So again, areas where you don't need all that weight and time and screw penetrations of some kind of a wood. I mean, not everybody's going to be looking straight up in the sky every single day to look at the wood ceiling that somebody had to screw up there and all the weight that's hanging there. So simplified detailing, air and water barrier, integrated drainage, continuous insulation, reinforcing mesh, endless finishes, endless color. That is what EIFS is. Now it ends the conclusion of the AIA portion of this, but what I like to do is just go, what does that really mean now for you? How does this really help you as a design professional? There's a few quotes that I love to share with you. One specifically, a really good friend of mine, Dave Stutzman with Conspectus over here in New Jersey, at least. He showed me this quote, that the writing of architects' specifications is a task approached by many with trepidation, by some with careless confidence of ignorance, and by few with studious determination to succeed. Now, I know all 204 of you are doing it with studious determination to succeed, and that's why you're on this call today, and I hope so. Another friend of mine, Nina Giglio, she had shared this with me at a conference once. She said, architects are the general practitioner doctors of construction. And so just as a general practitioner, you need to know so much about everything that's out there. And we, as professional specialists, try to be there to help you. And so I hope you see us as just that, because there are times where I get specifications such as this. A 4 or 5 digit code, in this case 5, in 2020, when we know that the CSIO codes have been increased to the 6. This is why I love reviewing specifications, not because I'm trying to find fault or, oh, I want my product to be in your spec. Of course I do. I mean, everybody wants it. And that's the same thing that you're doing as an architect when you try to go ahead and solicit and talk to somebody to try to get their business to build their building. However, I really am trying to make all of us successful by helping you. And this is also one of those things. Sometimes you'll find a specification where I love this: quality assurance, manufacturer, EMA member, which is the EIFS Industry Members Association. This is a fantastic way to make sure you're going to get the quality that you want on your job, to know that the quality assurance, the manufacturer and the applicator are both EMA members. But then what you need to do is make sure that the materials and the list of those materials are actually all members of these organizations. Because I can tell you that one of these three that are here are not a member of the organization. So again, to stop redundancies and conflicts is why I enjoy doing that job, by offering to review specifications and make sure everything is done well. So again, like I said in the beginning, to keep things current, make the connections, the connection with Master Wall, myself, send me an EIFS or an LAB spec. I'll be glad to review it and help you out in any way I can. And with that, I will leave this next 15 minutes open for any questions or comments or things that you may have.
All right, great. And just to let everyone know, I'm launching a quick poll. So if you are interested in getting follow-up information, whether that's samples, price quotes, lead times, just feel free to answer out this quick poll. That'll let us know your interest, and we'll be able to connect you directly with Master Wall after today's webinar. All right, let's see. So I know we had a bunch of questions in the chat, which some folks from the Master Wall team were already answering. So just let everyone know, feel free to put in any questions that we can answer out loud. I also see some folks have raised hands. I'm not sure if that was from the beginning, just letting me know that you could hear me or not. But if you would like to ask a question out loud, feel free to raise your hand. I'm just going to lower everyone's hands now. So feel free to re-raise your hand if you did want to talk out loud, and we will be happy to unmute you. And if we don't see any more questions come in, then we'll just go and talk through some of those questions that I see in the chat. Let's see. All right, so
these are the meatiest, nicest ribs.
looks like that was just an audio glitch. But I see Charles Shaw had asked about pros and cons of each, and looks like somebody answered EPS is lower cost, greater availability, and easier to install with EIFS. XPS is higher R value per inch, greater compressive strength. So I think that is a good thing for everyone to note. And let's see, Gregory Mullen raised their hand. Do you have a question, Gregory? I'll allow them to talk for a moment and see.
No, that must have been by accident. Thank you.
Okay, all good. All right, and then what about Chuck? It looks like your hand is raised as well. Unmute you for a second and let us know if you didn't have an actual question. Like maybe not. Got some coming in the chat. So Charles asks, how about as they both relate to moisture? So Brian, any thoughts on the pros and cons for EPS and XPS related to moisture?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that are written out there about it. Look, the reality is, I think that everything that's being tested out there, you know, the EPS people will say, no, it doesn't, it's going to soak some in there, but it's not going to be as much. It's going to vapor out like it's supposed to. The XPS group is always going to sit there and say it doesn't soak any moisture into the whole system that's out there. Honestly, I think that there is no really advantage to it on either side of it necessarily, except to say that, you know, any moisture that would get in that's going to be soaked up into an EPS to the amount that it's going to actually cause some damage to something, there's more problems than the EPS gaining that moisture that it's soaking in, if that makes sense. So I get what they always say. I mean, I read the articles. There was one out maybe a couple of months ago. But from a standpoint of where these wall assemblies are, that EPS specifically that will have a little bit retention of moisture it shouldn't be gaining any moisture. And so there really is no reason for the studies necessarily, in my opinion. I mean, again, that's more of an opinion piece, because I do understand what you're saying, that some have that aspect of like the XPS doesn't take on any moisture, and they'll see the, the images, right, of both, stop sharing on my screen just to do it this way, both pieces of EPS and XPS being dipped into water and one soaking things up. But I hope that helps a little bit as far as the differences there.
All right, cool. And then I see somebody had asked for contact information. So if you want to get in touch, again, the poll is a great way to do that. We will connect you directly with the team after today's webinar. And I also wanted to mention, if you are requesting samples, there will be a quick post-event survey as soon as we leave today's webinar, where you'll have the ability to add in your address. So just to simplify everything, we can collect your addresses there. So please stay tuned for that survey. You'll also be able to submit any other comments as well.
So one thing I'll mention too, I did see the one question on the repair damage panel with graffitis and things like that. And I know that we did reply to that, Jeff, Jeffrey. One thing I will say though, too, because I have had this asked specifically on the wood grain and the brick, because they know, like most people had known that, yeah, we can repair eaves, but what about the wood grain and brick? Honestly, it's actually easier on the wood grain and brick, because you would never, like if it was a piece of wood and somebody banged it, hit it, whatever it was, to repair that piece of wood, it's always going to look new. In an eave system, you're actually able to match closer to whatever is actually existing 4 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, then you would be able to match that and try to have to age that looking wall system, whatever it is, right? So sometimes even from a graffiti standpoint, if you have to cut something out and repair it, you're going to actually be in a better shape with an eave system than you would be anything else. And awesome. Yeah, that's what I got. If there's any other questions, just let me know. I mean, information is there. Yeah.
I see actually we've got two more open if you've got a moment.
Yeah.
Bill asks, can you address control joint requirements? Did we get to that one?
Yes. So control joint requirements, there really aren't any requirements. I mean, the requirements are going to be floor joints, floor to floor, dissimilar surfaces, kind of like your standard pieces. But for instance, I kind of go the other way to say, look, if you have a 100-foot long wall that's 20 feet tall and it's all one piece, it's all block wall or all framed out going down the wall with no really breaks in the whole system. Technically speaking, yeah, you could do it all in one shot. Now, it's going to look like crap, but that's mainly because the applicator is not going to be able to do it. And I would just say aesthetically, you want to put something in there. But the general idea of floor to floor control joint, absolutely. Dissimilar surface, absolutely. If there's an actual control joint in the wall assembly, yes, you're going to need it there on the outside. But from a standpoint, not similar in this way to a stucco system, right? Stucco hard coat cement stucco is 144 square feet is what they're going to say. And you really want to break that up with a control joint. In an eave system, not so when it comes to a square foot number, if that makes sense.
Okay, and then does ABAA have a standard for allowable penetration of air and water similar to the ASTM standards that you listed?
Oh, good question. Reggie, Abe, are you on there that you might know? And if
I'm not aware of it. All I know is the nail sealability test and things like that. But if you're looking for a certain size, of a screw, I guess you're penetrating the surface with, then we just have to look at that, I guess.
Yeah. And Jared, I just sent you my email. Not that you didn't have it already now. Let me know. I'll put that down. I'll find out. I mean, I've got a couple of people on the board there at ABAA to find out specifically on that question between them and myself and some people at Master Wall. We'll definitely be able to find that answer for you.
Awesome. Okay, looks like that was it for now. So I'll put in one more prompt for anyone who might have a question, as well as one more reminder about that poll if you're interested in receiving follow-up info. And yeah, I'll give everyone about 30 more seconds to fill that out or submit a question. But if not, then want to thank everyone again so much for joining today. Really appreciate it. Great to have so many questions and so much engagement. So thank you all for coming out today and attending today's webinar. As a reminder, the AIA sign-in form also is in the chat. Please take a moment to submit your AIA number there if you have not already. AIA credits will be reported directly to the AIA, and attendees can also receive certificates as well. All right. Looks like everyone has answered the poll, and all the Q&As I'm seeing coming in are thank yous. So thank you, everyone. Let
Thank
everyone
you,
go
everybody.
5 minutes early.
There
All
you
right.
go.
Cool. Thank you, Brian, and the rest of the Master Wall team for coming on today. Really appreciate your time as well.
Thank you both. Thank you, everybody. Hey,
Thanks,
Grant.
guys. All right. Bye.
Grant was my alter ego.
I see you've got a few. Cool. All right. Well, thanks,
Thanks,
Grant.
Bo. I'll talk to you later.
Everyone has a good one. Bye.
All right, bye.